Formula One reaches Silverstone now in Granada, today qualifying for tomorrow's Grand Prix.
From the word go in Australia, Mika Häkkinen's McLarens led the charge for the world title. They looked unbeatable. But hunted by Ferrari, the odds-on favourite has felt the pressure. A 1-2 for Schumacher and Irvine in France takes Ferrari to Silverstone on a roll. Welcome to Silverstone. A magnificent sporting weekend on ITV starts right here with the qualifying session for the RAC British Grand Prix. Hello, good afternoon. Silverstone has been sold out for months, today and tomorrow. And for those of us who are here, well, we've been promised some pretty foul weather. At the moment, though, just checking it out, it's dry but very windy. Who knows, that rain could be on the way. I reckon, though, your best bet is to stay with us for the British Grand Prix tomorrow afternoon and the World Cup final in the evening.
Here's Ronaldo! France will have to come from behind for the first time in the tournament. And maybe here they will do it. They have it. Thuram! If he misses, they're out. And he misses! And Brazil go into the World Cup final. Thuram made that his. Oh, he's looking for another goal! He's got another goal!
There we go then, France, Brazil, 7:45 after Coronation Street. Tomorrow night, the third place playoff, Holland against Croatia, 7:45 tonight. Now, we travel the world on Formula One, but really Silverstone is very special for us. It can be a difficult circuit to get to, but once you're inside, well, there's no place like home, is there?
Away, David. Go on, David.
Rock and roll. Showtime. Putting the pedal to the metal. Here goes. This cold war just got hot.
Okay, well, Tony Jardine will be with me, as always, throughout the weekend. Hi, Tony. Silverstone, the spotlight is always turned particularly harshly on the British drivers.
It's the one they all want to win, but particularly David Coulthard. He needs a win to stay in the championship, but he also would like to be the 10th ever British driver to win his home race, and that would really stir his loins. Eddie Irvine's got no chance of winning unless Michael Schumacher breaks down. Contractually, he can't do that. Damon himself is quietly optimistic, although he's considering his future at the moment. He reckons if he just gets points, it'll be like a win, like he did last year. Herbert, I don't think he can repeat that win of 95, but he also says if he could get on the podium, that would be fantastic.
You say Damon's considering his future. How realistic is that threat to pack it all up at the end of the season?
I think he's just looking at all the options. I seriously think there's some other offers on the table, particularly maybe from BAR for another 3 years, which would be great. After all, he's only 37. Mansell won the championship at 38. And Hill said he could carry on till he's 40.
OK, thank you very much, Tony. Well, the British Grand Prix marks sort of the halfway stage of the season. 7 races to go after this one, culminating with the Japanese Grand Prix at the start of November. Martin Brundle has compiled a half-term report, if you like, on the team's performances so far.
From the first race in Melbourne, it seemed as if McLaren would have the drivers and manufacturers' titles sewn up by August. An all-silver front row, a dominant 1-2, and Mika Häkkinen on top of the podium to lead the World Championship so far this season. But then it began to go wrong. A gearbox failure in Imola for Häkkinen, and then a smoky blow-up for David Coulthard in Monaco. He steps out of the car, but more problems ahead with a refuelling rig drama in Manny Court. It cost him dearly, vulnerability we did not expect from the McLaren team. And you just can't do that with this man, Michael Schumacher, around, even though his season started badly with an engine blow-up in Melbourne. A strong podium in Brazil scored some points, and then 3 dominant wins in Argentina, Montreal and Manny Court in France. Ably supported by Eddie Irvine, his teammate, who has scored 5 podiums in the last 6 races. Dave Richards, the new boss of Benetton, must be very happy. They're third in the World Championship, 27 points, and his 2 young chargers are driving well. Herr Wirth puts a move on the vastly more experienced Heinz-Harald Frentzen and makes it stick. His young teammate Giancarlo Fisichella drove beautifully in Monaco to be on the podium for 2nd place. But occasionally they've been over-ambitious. Here you see Wirtz in Canada making a double flip. At Williams, Heinz-Harald Frentzen needed a strong season to keep his seat. It just hasn't happened. He's been dismal in some of the races. Teammate Jacques Villeneuve's been frustrated off the track and on. Look at this attempt to take the lead. A poor error from a driver of his calibre. Just 19 points from the Williams team. Remember, they dominated last season. No points yet for the Jordan team. 23-year-old Ralf Schumacher making plenty of mistakes, stalling on the line and then spinning off here into the first corner of Montreal. Damon Hill's made his fair share of mistakes too, running into the back of Johnny Herbert in the Argentinian Grand Prix. They've also had reliability problems. A double points finish for the Stuart Ford team in Montreal. Barrichello ahead of Magnussen. It wasn't enough to keep Jan Magnussen his job. He's been replaced by Jos Verstappen. They've also had incidents and reliability problems aplenty. A reasonable season for Stewart, but they should have done better. And so should Prost. They've got a lot of heavy hitters in that team, but it's been terrible. Driver Olivier Panis may well look at the back of it as Alain Prost looks to the future. He's only used to winning World Championships as a driver. Tough for him. Johnny Herbert hasn't had a good season. The Sauber promised much. There's talk of him being pushed out. He's done more for them than they've done for him. Difficult also for Jean Alesi, breaking down here just near the end of the Monaco Grand Prix. As he sinks to his knees, it says it all. Both arrows competitive and in the points in Monte Carlo. A very relieved team boss Tom Walkinshaw here congratulates his team members, but there's a lot of work to do. They have their own engine and it seems underpowered. The second half of the season will be tough. As ever, the underfinanced Minardi team have populated the back of the grid. Well, at least they make a noise while the leaders are around the other side of the track. Tyrrell pretty much joined them. Rosset failing to qualify twice. He's getting better, but this pretty much sums up Tyrrell's first part of the season.
Thank you, Martin. Can be a bit of a noisy place round here, as you might have noticed a few minutes ago. Harrier jump jets strutting their stuff around Silverstone, a magnificent sight. Now then, we could have a new World Championship leader this weekend. Häkkinen's just 6 points clear now of Michael Schumacher. David Coulthard, he really does need a big race. Eddie Irvine threatening to overtake the Scot. Meantime, in the Constructors' Championship, Schumacher and Irvine have cut the McLaren advantage to just 11 points. At one stage, it was over 30. Benetton pushing the champions Williams down into 4th place. OK, Tony, a bit of encouragement for Jordan we've seen here this morning.
Yeah, they were 4th and 5th. Ralph was 4th, and he was equal fastest with Michael Schumacher, his brother, in the British Grand Prix testing last week, so that was very good. I think Damon's been quietly optimistic because they've got a lot of aerodynamic changes to the car. They've got a revised Honda engine, revised exhaust, and Damon was 5th quickest, so he's quite pleased with that. It's their home circuit as well, so we've all got our fingers crossed.
Just explain to us, the driver's been complaining that the circuit changes its characteristics very quickly. Why is that?
Well, last week, for example, the weather was slightly different. The wind was in a totally different direction. It's coming the other way down the straight, and it's causing the cars to twitch a bit. That's exemplified by Coulthard, who says that last week he had an understeering car, so he's turning more into the corners, and now the tail's coming out, so he's got oversteer. It's totally changed the face of the car, but it's more exciting for us because they're going all over the shop.
Absolutely, and who knows what might happen here if that rain does arrive. OK, we've seen Martin's views. Now let's get the verdicts of really the men who matter, the men at the sharp end, the team bosses.
First of all, we're leading both championships at the moment, and but we're very aware that this time last year Michael Schumacher was leading the championship by 16 points and lost it.
We have a lot to improve on, and I think we can do, but I'd rather think about going forward rather than think about the dismal start we've had. It hasn't been nice.
Well, I guess if you was looking at a school report, I'd say showing a lot of promise, can still do better.
Not too impressive, really, I think. Certainly by our recent standards, and we suffered quite a bit in Goodyear's change from the narrow front tire to the wide front tire. We're getting a bit closer as it goes on, but we don't like being bit part players and don't intend to stay there.
We decided to do a radical new car, but hopefully the design will last us right through into next year, only with an evolution of it. So long term I think it was the right thing, but it made the first half of the year very, very hard.
We're fifth in the Constructors' Championship, not much ahead of anybody else, but we're very pleased. The car's reliable, the car's beginning to work well, but we know that the second year was never going to be one of our most important years.
Very disappointing, very difficult, very hard job for almost no result. The future looks good, but to be honest, the second part of the season is going to be very difficult again.
We were a bit slow at the beginning of the season, and we're a little bit surprised by McLaren's performance, I must say. But we're getting better now. The last two wins have been fantastic for us, and they've given everyone a big boost. We've got to keep it up.
It's only half-time, though. A lot of points to be won and lost. Now, world champion Jacques Villeneuve comes here looking for his third successive victory in the British Grand Prix. It's a long shot. The bookies will give you around 40-1 if you fancy Villeneuve to win here. His contract at Williams, that's up at the end of the season. He hasn't told them yet if he's going to go or stay. A couple of days ago, Jacques Villeneuve spoke to Louise Goodman when he had white hair.
Jacques Villeneuve takes that fourth position if he just comes out of the last corner all right.
That fourth place in France was the closest the reigning world champion has got to the podium in '98. Villeneuve has struggled with an underperforming package this season, and despite recent improvements to the car, his title defence is effectively over. But the Williams team continue to polish up their act, and last week tested some modifications for their home race.
So Jacques, Silverstone, you won here last year. What chances of winning again this year?
Better than other tracks this year. Finally in Manicourt we were competitive enough to fight, not enough to win by beating the McLarens and the Ferraris, but at least we weren't that far behind.
What's it been like for you this year? Because you've always, as long as you've been in Formula 1, you've been winning, haven't you, until this year?
Yeah, that's true.
I'm sure you didn't need me to point that out to you, but...
No problem. The racing has been tougher. If anything, I've raced better this year than in the other years. I had to fight all the time. Every lap of the races have been on the limit, qualifying laps, from the first lap to the last lap, and often just to get 1 point with a lot of sweat.
Too much sweat, according to Jacques' close friend and manager Craig Pollock. The boss of new team British American Racing was outspoken in his criticism of Frank Williams. Pollock told ITV that he believes Frank's team are letting Villeneuve down.
I think the performance of a World Championship winning team in a year where they've got a world champion and #1 in the car is relatively disappointing. And the reaction time, meaning the time it's taken them to change the car, is disappointing for that type of team. And I think their efforts are maybe going elsewhere and they're not really thinking about next year.
It's 9 months since Jacques Villeneuve last stood on the podium, but despite the lack of results recently, he has no plans to give up on Formula One. Jacques still loves the racing, although he admits the sport has its faults.
It's very politically correct on the outside, but there's some dirty games happening that nobody can see.
Like God.
Well, if nobody can see them, I'm not going to tell you. I think there's a lack of respect.
Amongst the drivers?
Yeah, amongst the drivers. You know, every driver says that every other driver is an idiot.
Yeah.
So it's, except for a few, most drivers aren't respected, and then I don't think the racing is good, partly because of that.
Do you see any of the other drivers down in Monaco?
David Coulthard, once in a while, but now he's deeply in love, so we see less of him.
Right, is Jacques Villeneuve still deeply in love with Williams, or the end of the affair looming?
Well, I think he's about to start an affair with Louise after that, don't you think so? Although he's a lot smaller than she is. No, I think that if you look at the BAR situation, he's considering a brand new team that's going to be built around him. We understand there is bait being put in there of a possible shareholding for Jacques as well. He's considered that Williams haven't really reacted very well this year and caught up and given him a car that he really wants. Williams are going to transition now till 2000, till BMW come, so what's he got to lose? I think he may well just go off with his mate Craig Pollock. And by the way, someone spilt Ribena on his hair since that interview.
Well, that was yesterday's colour. Who knows what it's going to be today? Right, mentioning Louise, she's down there talking to Gary Anderson, Jordan's technical director, a team that really hope to turn things round this weekend, Lou.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Jim. I'll be around to see you later, Tony. Gary, you've been missing for the past couple of races, busy in the drawing office trying to get some more speed in the car. Are you pleased with your efforts?
Yeah, it seems to be working okay. I mean, it's always difficult because it takes a lot to make a little difference, you know. So we've got, as I say, new side pods, underfloor, everything in the car, a little bit better aerodynamics, and hopefully it'll prove to give us a little bit of a lap time reduction.
Now, you've been joined by Mike Gascoigne. He's joined you from Tyrrell as chief designer. How's that going to work? How will the two of you work together?
Well, really, as we've grown in the last sort of year and a half from something like 7 or 8 people in the drawing office to something like 20. And really Mike's job as chief designer will be to manage the design of the car with really the coordination between all those people, because as you get bigger, obviously there's a lot more coordination. My job is to try and find the speed out of it, and his will be to try to put it together and make it happen with everybody heading in the same direction.
Thanks very much, Raoul. Good luck in the session this afternoon.
Okay, thanks, bye.
Thank you, Gary. This really is a home fixture for Jordan. The Silverstone circuit is right across the road from their headquarters. A lot of history around this place. Silverstone hosted the first war Grand Prix, the first British Grand Prix in '49, the first World Championship Grand Prix in '50. Martin Brundle's been a key player in creating the modern Silverstone.
Well, this is new for '98 at Silverstone, the start line. They've moved it somewhat further down the pit straight towards the first corner. They wanted all 22 cars lining up in a straight line. But the timing point for qualifying and the finish line is still back there at Woodcote, right on the exit. The first corner Copse is still an 180 miles an hour entry, just bleeding the speed down to 150 through the scrub of the tyres as you stay on the throttle for a good slingshot towards Beckett's. The first right-hander of Beckett's. Now, I find this difficult to believe myself, but you arrive here at 180 miles an hour. It's a very tight right-hander. You don't lift the throttle. Top gear, you just scrub off a little speed down to 165 before the slower second part at 125. I'd like £5 for every time I've been skied through here. Slow for a second time to 100 miles an hour for the last right-left of Beckett's before heading out onto the hangar straight. Bring the car diagonally over to the left, the shortest route to be ready for the right-hander of Stowe. 190 miles an hour on the entry, loads of space, and 105 miles an hour for a very late apex. Something else new for '98. This looks like one of the new car parks at Silverstone. Actually, it's the runoff area to Club Corner. They've changed the gravel, which can make the cars fly, in a hope to slow them down before they slam into the barrier. We'll wait and see what happens there. Club Corner itself is very tricky. A slow left-hander, just 55 miles an hour, before a long, long right-hander through to the exit, building up towards Abbey. Lots of gear shifts, a lot of demands on the car. Up to sixth gear finally in 175 miles an hour. Bring the car over to the right. This is the hardest braking point on the circuit. 3G, take the curb on the left, take the curb on the right, third gear and accelerate out. From Abbey you're heading downhill and you thought Silverstone was completely flat, didn't you? You're into Bridge, one of the great corners of the world. You're doing 155 miles an hour, still accelerating. Keep the throttle down hard. There's 0.2 of a second to be found here. Keep the car then over to the right-hand side. You're heading towards the complex, the last part of the lap. We always refer to it as the complex, but the official name is Priory for the first one. Brooklands for the slower left, just 50 miles an hour. Keep the car inside, use a bit of curb and a bit of grass. Accelerate hard towards Luffield, the last long right-hander, before you head into the famous Woodcote curve and a new lap of this wonderful Grand Prix circuit, which is one of the most physical of the year.
It's a beautiful circuit, a lot of high-speed corners, which I love to drive. Then you have a slower complex, which is nice to drive when the car is good. At the moment, it's not so good.
People always ask about what's it like to be at your home race, and it's difficult to really feel the emotion until you hit the track. And when I went out there this morning, it was a real good feeling when I was going down Hanger Straight and I could see the crowds, and you know, you really do feel as a British driver that they're there for you, and that makes it special. So this is the one I'd like to win.
He'd like to win, he'd like to have every race here at Silverstone, I'm sure. The views of David Coulthard. Let's hear from none of the British hopes here this weekend. It's Eddie Irvine, and he's talking now live to James Allen.
Well, Jim, as you know, Eddie Irvine's been a real star in the last few races. You're going to do it again this weekend, Eddie? Obviously, the qualifying is going to be pretty critical.
It always is here. But, you know, strategy can play a part in this race as well. So even if qualifying doesn't go well, as long as you've got a good race car, you know, you can make an impact. But it's the home race for all these other guys, and you know, they've been testing here all year, and it does make it that little bit more difficult for us.
We keep hearing that the weather's closing in. There's going to be a storm, a lot of rain. Does that mean you get a lap in early in qualifying?
We just got to monitor the situation and see what the story is. It's supposed to rain, and it does feel a bit damp now compared to this morning. But to be honest, it's supposed to have been raining for the last 3 days, and it hasn't arrived. You know, I went down to Oxford last night. It was pouring down there, but here was okay before I left. So it's it seems to be very patchy, and it just depends whether we're under that patch or not.
Very briefly, you've had some fantastic race performances, but qualifying, you've never quite got it together. Do you think you can get it together today?
You never know. It's one of them things, you know. And in Magny-Cours, really, I was right there with Michael in every section, except he got his mainly together and I didn't. We'll see today. He has a bit of an edge on me in T2, so I'm quicker than him in T3. We'll see.
Best of luck, Eddie. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, we'll see in the qualifying session starting around about 10 minutes' time. Eddie Irvine, Tony, I mean, he's always on the podium, that guy.
He is tremendous. He's had 5 podiums this year, but he's actually at a bit of a crossroads because he's fairly fed up with riding shotgun and being the bridesmaid to Michael Schumacher. He's the perfect number 2. That's exactly the branding that he doesn't want. He actually went down in a quote in the newspaper saying that he was bored during his race in France, bored holding off the cars. He wanted to race. He said, that's what gives me the buzz. And we think that he's trying to negotiate a new contract with Ferrari for next year, which says that he can race.
OK, Tony, thank you very much. Well, remembering last year's British Grand Prix, it was a great day for Benetton. John Alesi second, Alexander Wurz third. And Wurz was only driving because Gerhard Berger was unwell. Since then, he's become an established member of the Benetton team with Giancarlo Fisichella, the young Italian, really charging again after a pretty slow start to the season. He's been chatting to Louise.
Giancarlo Fisichella had a slow start to his first season with Benetton, but 2 second-place finishes, the most recent in Canada, have helped restore the Italian's lost confidence.
I had a little strange period, especially the beginning of the season. I had few problems and not good results. But in Monte Carlo and in Canada, I finished twice second. And this is a great result.
You must be happy that you made the move from Jordan.
Oh yeah, I am a little bit disappointed because Jordan this year is not really good, and because there is a very good friendship with the mechanics and with Eddie. But for me, it's better to be here this year, of course.
So what are your plans for next year?
To be here, still in Benetton, and also this year to win some races. Why not?
So you're not going into the movies then, because your name is often mentioned in connection with this film that Sylvester Stallone is making?
I don't know about it. I had a little lunch with Sylvester Stallone, and he told me there is a possibility to be in the film.
Would you like to do that?
Oh yeah, why not?
You've got the film star looks, haven't you?
He never answered that, did he? There we go. Sylvester Stallone, he's apparently around Silverstone this weekend. Lots of stories, lots of gossip around the paddock, always at the British Grand Prix. Actually, Fisichella's had a bit of a problem this morning. Let's get back to James.
It's been a while since Jacques Villeneuve has had a purple patch in Formula One, but the RAC this week presented him with the Hawthorn Trophy for the highest placed Commonwealth driver in the '97 championship. Villeneuve's plans for next year are still fluid. His ex-manager Craig Pollock unveiled the new factory of his British-American racing team this week, and rumours suggest that Jacques Villeneuve is on his way there. Pollock says he's also targeting Damon Hill, and Villeneuve seems keen.
I've worked with Damon before, and that was great, so why not? But, you know, right now I'm not even sure where I'm going to be next year, so I have to think about that first.
Williams looks set to drop Heinz-Harald Frentzen, and IndyCar ace Alex Zanardi could replace him.
Certainly Alex Zanardi is very high on the list of people who could possibly be driving with us, but no contracts are signed at this stage.
BMW has appointed Gerhard Berger as sporting director of its Formula One engine project, due to start with Williams in the year 2000. Gerhard's friends can hardly believe he's at last got a serious desk job. After recent problems, McLaren is polishing up its act, starting by installing an Italian ceramic floor in the garage at a cost of £4,000. Follow that, Ferrari. Jordan Technical Director Gary Anderson has hired ex-Tyrrell engineer Mike Gascoigne and made a number of significant aerodynamic changes to the car.
Change the side pods. They used to be quite a bit longer. This length here with a different barge board, as we call it, arrangement.
Arrows goes into the British Grand Prix with extra confidence thanks to a new TWR V10 engine.
It was well over a second quicker here when we tested it last week. So, yeah, the guys are up, and you know, we've got more revisions coming later in the season. So, just keep pushing.
It was a largely incident-free Saturday morning practice, although Giancarlo Fisichella lost 27 minutes with this trip into the gravel trap. Good news for Damon Hill fans. The Jordan changes seem to be working. Damon 5th fastest this morning, behind the McLaren, of course, of Mika Hakkinen, fastest again.
So the battle for the best places for tomorrow's British Grand Prix will be underway in a few minutes. It's the qualifying hour next.